Now I will let people in. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. If you wouldn't mind activating your cameras, that would be most appreciated. I'm gonna wait for everybody to connect over before we get going. Go vote leaders. Does it look like everybody is here from your respective ends? Perfect. All right, well then let's get going. So I'm delighted to welcome you to our final Go Virtual for this semester. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight we're gonna do 3 things. So first, we're gonna hear from our 2 Go Vote teams about their experiences participating in this non-traditional global outreach project. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Go Vote is the global outreach umbrella project we ran this semester, where our team participants were charged with raising civic awareness through the lens of nonpartisan democracy on our campuses and digitally leading up to the presidential election. Our participants grappled with these realities as they relate to our Jesuit identity through many conversations about social responsibility as Jesuit-educated citizens. In between both teams, we're delighted to welcome Matthew Cuff, Fordham alumnus and former policy advisor of the Advocacy Office of the Jesuit Conference of Canada and the United States, to hear about how global outreach shaped his understanding of Jesuit education as it relates to civic efficacy. And lastly, Father Mick McCarthy of the Society of Jesus, our Vice President for Mission Integration and Planning, is going to commission our team participants as leaders emerging around democracy in our Fordham community as we close out one semester looking towards the spring. So I will now turn it over to Michelle Cisneros, one of our board presidents.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle. I'm one of the co-presidents for the Rose Hill Board, and I'll just be introducing the non-Ignatian Family Teaching for Justice group led by Nora Carr and Sarah Cassidy. So I'll just turn it over to them.
Hi, everyone. I'm Noor. Sarah, you can introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. Yeah, I'm one of the leaders for the non-IFTJ track.
Okay, great. And we are going to present to you guys everything we have accomplished this semester from what we've done and what we've learned. We're going to start off with a quote by John Lewis, and we will end with one. We've been too quiet for too long. There comes a time when you have to say something. You have to make a little noise. You have to move your feet. This is the time. Okay, so this is the progression of the Go Vote virtual campaign. First, we established a mission for our advocacy initiatives, as well as our civic engagement efforts, and then we put together a formalized virtual campaign. And through this, a lot of our team members and we participated in voter outreach, whether it be phone banking or educating ourselves on voter suppression. And here we are to present our formalized research. And we will conclude with a look ahead into the future and how our efforts will continue beyond this semester. Okay, so the Go Vote mission. Before we started our efforts, we wanted to go in with the right intentions. So we all wrote down kind of what we expected this project to be and what we wanted to gain from this project. So if we were to look at the 6 core values that we all came up with, they all somehow included these options. So information and education, we wanted to be a resource to share information on current social and political issues. Second, Fordham community, we wanted to maximize our impact because if we had kind of hoped to approach the larger American audience, the impact would not have been as great. Inspire and take action. So we do understand and recognize that education is only the foundation for real engagement and social activism. Active resource. We wanted our campaign to be a resource for the Fordham community in that it stays up to date with current news that is something that Fordham people are interested in. Interactive format. We wanted to create dialogue with the community that we're interacting with, and we'll go more into that when we discuss the Instagram. and empathy driven. This is arguably the most important value of our whole project. We wanted empathy to be the foundation basis for all of our efforts and ideas. So looking at those 6 core values, we put together a mission statement. The Go Vote Digital Activism campaign is an engaging and active resource for Fordham students. The campaign will act as an educative and motivational tool to spark civic engagement and civil political discourse. And when we look at this mission statement, there are 3 key points: education as the foundation, engagement as what really connects us to the greater Fordham community and its values, and tool to kind of see how our campaign will exist beyond the semester-long project. And these are the 6 topics that we will be talking about. Emma is going to start with the Instagram campaign.
Right, hi everyone, my name's Emma, and for part of our Go Vote project, we set up an Instagram. So why did we pick Instagram as a platform to kind of spread our message and our research? It's a really easy way to reach a wide audience of your peers and make it so that they can share what we give them on this page with others super easily, and it's a very attractive option. We also really wanted to keep our classmates and peers informed, as well as receive feedback ourselves on what others find important. Part of this also, especially closer to the election, was to keep people up to date with election deadlines, candidate options, both locally, federally, and at the state level. And we also found it really important to make sure people had all of the information available to them on mail-in voting, especially during the pandemic. It was really vital that everyone who wanted to vote in our circle of peers and classmates could do so and know that their vote would be counted. Related to that, we also use this Instagram as a method to spread COVID news about New York, the school, anything like that. But really, we found it just a really easy way to have a close group of people who all were affected the same, and we could easily provide valuable information to them. So social media activism as a whole has kind of gotten some backlash this year, and it's very important to recognize that it's not enough on its own to just be a social media activist and just be reposting Canva slides, but it's incredibly necessary in today's age. It's the first step often in starting conversations about social justice with your peers, family, and friends, and it makes it super easier for everyone to get involved. It's a very normalized way of talking about super serious issues that you can kind of find on a very base level and then dive into at a deeper level using sources that aren't a social media site. It also, we saw this year in 2020, motivated young voters like any other year with a record voter turnout, especially among college students. So we kind of wanted to seize that opportunity and get on the wagon of social media activism, but making sure that it's not all that we did.
Hi, I'm Dia, and I'll be speaking about our movie night, where we watched All In: The Fight for Democracy. This was an incredibly eye-opening film which gave us insight on the role of our institutions in voter suppression. And what we took away from this film, and the most important points are, as a producer of this film, Stacey Abrams has used her own history of being an advocate for voting rights to tell the story of widespread voter suppression in the United States, and which we obviously saw the impacts of in this election. Voter suppression also played a huge role in the outcome of the 2018 Georgia gubernatorial race, which she was also running in. And the 2013 Supreme Court ruling that weakened the Voting Rights Act of 1965 also allowed for the return of rampant state voter discrimination, and we see the impacts of that to this day.
Hi, my name is Blanca, and I'm going to talk to you guys about our election phone banking, which in fact we took it a step further than just our social media activism and educating ourselves with the movie, and just taking it a step closer with our engaging with our civic duties. So earlier this semester, we teamed with Supermajority, which is a women's organization that focuses on affirming and building women's power. It's an organization that works for gender equality and equal representations among women. Their purpose is to just train and mobilize a community of all ages, races, and backgrounds, and women to be all effective advocates. So what we did was, as a team, we came together for about an hour to reach out to callers. We each took about 15 or 20 callers, and we just kind of spoke to them and educated them about voting during the 2020 presidential election. We gave them enough information about absentee ballots, returning those ballots, where their polling stations were at, and just encouraging them to vote overall. And if they had any additional questions, we had all the answers and more information to provide for them. It was an absolutely genius and important activity that we did overall, because our goal was to reach other people to do the same thing that we're doing, showing our activism, demonstrating that voting matters and why they should go out to vote, and especially in the 2020 presidential election. And that's exactly what we did. And we did such a phenomenal job. We were all proud of it. And we were just glad that we got the results that we did in the end.
Hi everyone, my name is Julia and I'm going to be talking about the Observer article. So the process in deciding to write this article was basically, our goal as a team was to be a resource for our peers. And obviously one way we did that was through the Instagram account, which was sort of a central place for reliable voting information. But when we were brainstorming sort of how do we go beyond this semester and create something that when we're not like posting on Instagram can still be useful to our peers, we decided to write an article. So the main points of the article, we talked about how news these days has a lot of bias due to the ad-based revenue model. And so we found this acronym CRAAP, which stands for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. And those are just sort of 5 things to keep in mind when consuming all of the news that we see on social media and like on news channels and newspapers, things like that. And another thing to keep in mind is that we sort of have this confirmation bias as humans, where if we tend to believe a certain thing, we look for information that just confirms what we already believed. And so we have to recognize that in ourselves and try to search for other sources. And as a whole, we suggested keeping a skeptical mind and motivated attitude as consumers of the news in order to find the most reliable information that we can.
Hi again, everyone. So I'm Sarah, and I'm going to be talking about the Georgia runoff module we created. So as some of you may know, Georgia is having a runoff election on January 5th, and this is in some cases a rare occurrence. Not all states have this. And we just thought it was really important to educate Fordham students on what a runoff is, why the upcoming Georgia runoff is an election, and how we can all get involved. And we wanted to do this in a short informational video, and we worked with the IFTJ team to create this. So we tried to keep our video short and simple so people could just gain the main points. We mainly talked about 4 different sections. So the first one, we talked about what is a runoff, and we explained to viewers that a runoff election is a second election held when no candidate receives more than 50% of the votes in certain states. We also go into the racist history of runoff elections and how that kind of is something that we should be aware of as we approach the Georgia runoffs. Going into that, we talked about what is actually happening in Georgia and how Georgia is holding 2 runoff elections for Senate seats. We also talked about the candidates, and we go a little bit into their viewpoints and policies in order for viewers to understand everything and to kind of gauge where their perspective stands. And then lastly, we talk about what you can do as a college student. Something that's really important is making sure your Georgia friends are registered to vote and ready to vote on January 5th, and also consider phone banking beforehand if you have the time.
Hi everyone, my name is Daphne and I'm going to present on what we're going to do next. So first I will present on just goals and why they're important, or like why we would do this. So the first goal would be to continue to educate the Fordham community, and the reason why this is important is because we, just like we have done throughout the semester, we've used our political voice and privilege as students to be able to educate our peers within, our Fordham community, within the campus. And the next step would then be to spread our message to other college students, because just as important it is to educate our own peers, it'd be really important to also spread this message outside of the Fordham community. Because just like we have seen in the 2020 presidential election, there was so many college students and younger generations at the polls. So it's definitely really important to spread all the work that we've done, not only within the walls of Fordham, but outside of the walls of Fordham as well. And just some methods of outreach that we can definitely keep in mind as we move forward is to continue to spread our message on social media. So through our Instagram account, like the Go Vote Instagram, but also on our own social media accounts, as well as reaching out in our local communities. For example, I wrote there writing to representatives, like our own local representatives, to spread our messages and our ideas and our agendas to them, as well as even our friends and friends of friends. It's just pretty much really important to spread all the work that we've done beyond just our own circles, and to spread it outside of the community as much as possible.
Hi everyone, I'm Anastasia and I'm going to conclude our presentation today by reflecting on our most notable accomplishments that we made throughout these endeavors. In conclusion, we have informed the Fordham community about the importance of civic responsibility, with a concentration on the importance of voting. We've utilized our voices via social media platforms to infiltrate the spread of helpful and clear information to our community. And we've created a community where individuals can express their devotion of civic engagement and political activism. This past election, over 25 million young voters decided to exercise their civic duties to vote, which is incredible. And this turnout was crucial for the 2020 election, which is shown by multiple sources which broadcasted the large impact that young voters had across the nation.
So something we talked about a lot during our meetings is kind of the sources we utilize and the media we consume. So we've created a list of resources for Fordham students that we hope to get out and share. They're reliable and valid and really useful resources. So some of them are 2020 election and Gen Z information, supermajority phone banking information, All in the Fight for Democracy, which is the documentary we watched, our Go Vote Instagram, and Finding Credibility in a Noisy News World article. And to end our presentation, we want to share this quote that meant a lot to our team. So, do not get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful, be optimistic. Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year, just the struggle of a lifetime. Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble, by John Lewis. So thank you everyone for listening to our presentation. We hope you enjoyed.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the Go Vote non-IFTJ team. And I'm Aria. I'm the co-president of the Lincoln Center Board, and I'm going to be introducing Matt Cuff. Thank you, Matt, for coming, especially during final season. Matt graduated from Fordham College at Rose Hill in 2012. While at Fordham, Matt participated in 3 Go projects: Go New York City, Go El Salvador, and Go India, in addition to serving on the Go board. After graduating, Matt worked at the Jesuit Conference of Canada and the United States as a senior policy advisor in the Office of Justice and Ecology. Matt, in this role, was able to engage in federal level advocacy, networking, and advocacy on the social justice priorities of the Society of Jesus. Matt has also served on the board of directors of the Ignatian Solidarity Network and the National Advocacy Center of the Sisters of the Good Shepherd.
And currently, Matt is pursuing his master's, in theological studies at Boston College's School of Theology and Ministry. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you for having me. I just have to say, first of all, I am so delighted to be here. It is also my final season, so it's really interesting to be back in finals after 8 years away. So I'm right there with you. And then also, I'm just delighted to see so many familiar faces. Roxanne Delatore is one of my dearest friends. She was actually my leader for Urban Plunge when I was a freshman at Fordham, and then we were actually able to work together as Urban Plunge leaders moving forward. Dean Parmack is another great friend, Jill Severiano and Carol Gibney. It's just so good to be here with these folks. Global outreach really, I think, meant the world to me, and I think set me on a trajectory that really challenged me to think about advocacy as a profession, or at least something to pursue seriously. So tonight, what I'd like to do briefly is kind of talk about what a few things I learned from my Go experiences, and then a few things that I think can help you think about how do you sustain yourself in this work moving forward, and what are some ways to think about this work in specifically Jesuit Ignatian kind of terms that I think might help you, be effective in this work. So first of all, I did a lot of Go projects. I did El Salvador, I did New York City, I did India, very different contexts, different types of projects. But a really important, and I think probably the fundamental lesson I took from these projects was that relationship is really the key to sustaining ourselves in this work over the long run. And I don't just mean relationship with our teammates, our colleagues, but I mean relationships with the folks that you're encountering through those experiences. They will, I think, those voices will expand your world. They will challenge you to see the world differently. They will at times confirm what you've learned in your textbooks. At other times, they will say that it is much more complicated than some theory in what you're reading for your class. And I think that's really important. And I think that's a lesson that you can take with you moving forward. It's certainly something I took with me into my advocacy work, that at the end of the day, whatever the issue we were looking at, there were real people behind it with real experiences, complicated experiences, and that those experiences were just as important for informing whatever decision we were going to make as sort of the policy analysis or the latest research. So I think that's a really kind of important theme to take forward from this experience. I know it's hard to be in relationship right now in the ways we used to be because of the pandemic. So I really encourage you to find ways to connect and stay in relationship with each other so that you can support each other in this work moving forward, but also find new and interesting ways like what you've done, like what you've talked about already, to engage with others. So I think that's a really important lesson. And then second, let me just share a few sort of things that my office used, ideas my office used to think about our advocacy work. Now, advocacy is just one specific dimension of civic engagement, as I think you're aware. So, voting is civic engagement, going to protests is civic engagement, engaging on social media is civic engagement. All of these kind of fall under the umbrella of civic engagement. But I do think that there is something very important and Ignatian and something that we're all kind of called to as Fordham students, current and former. And these are three sort of Ignatian principles I think can hopefully inform your work and sustain you in your work. So this is from a document written by a British Jesuit, Frank Turner, who was the director of the counterpart office for mine, but in Brussels, and they did their work with the European Union, their advocacy work. So he has this great document, which I'll share in the chat in a few minutes. It's called Ignatian Advocacy, and it's really about the principles here. I won't spend much time on this, but he lists 3 things that I think are really important, and I hope that you will continue to take seriously as you think about civic engagement. So first he says that advocacy or civic engagement is qualified. So what he means by this is it's competent and it's supported by study and research and also self-awareness. So what he means, and I think you've demonstrated this in your Go Vote project, like you really need to know your stuff, right? You want to be credible, you want to be on top of it, you want to be able to speak about the complexity of the issue, because that is going to actually make you a more credible kind of advocate. So, you know, taking that Jesuit education that we've all been lucky enough to kind of receive in all of its, you know, in how challenging it is, how rigorous it is, and using that as a resource and applying it to your civic engagement is really, really important. Because frankly, there are too many voices in the public eye right now who do not take seriously research and the experiences of others, and you know, all of, you know, basic facts at times. We can go on and on. So it's really important to be grounded in qualified kind of you know, research and study. Secondly, and I touched on this a little bit already, an Ignatian approach to civic engagement is going to be relational fundamentally. It's focused on people, not just on the issues. And it goes by the way of encounter. So what we mean by encounter here is, like I said earlier, those people you're going to encounter on those Go projects when we're able to actually travel again, but also an encounter with yourself. What are the things that you uniquely bring to the conversation? Never forget that that's an important kind of factor as you think about civic engagement, your own voice. And then third, it's an encounter with those that we disagree with as well. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing the work, right? So by the very nature of this type of engagement, we are recognizing that there are people who we disagree with, and we're trying to, in an Ignatian way, we want to approach those folks through a lens of encounter, not necessarily through a lens of conflict. Now, that's not to say we will ultimately agree and that conflict will not happen, but as a disposition, it's really important to approach these conversations with that relational aspect in mind. And then third, this type of civic engagement is Ignatian. So that term gets thrown around a lot, but for Father Turner, what he defines it as, it's a spiritual practice. So our civic engagement is grounded in something. It's attentive to our deepest feelings about how we want the world to be and what we want the world to look like. And then ultimately, in a very Ignatian kind of way, it's not just about feeling, it's not just about our hopes, it's also about taking those ideas and putting them into practice. So those are some things that I think are really important to keep in mind. And now I would just like to end with this. When I came to Washington, D.C. and started working at the Jesuit Conference in their advocacy office, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. I frankly thought it was going to be much more of a argumentative kind of work, thinking that I'm going to go up on Capitol Hill and I'm going to tell people what the truth is and what it's really like. And that's not really how it was. What I found advocacy, and frankly, what I found a lot of policymakers to really be like was not this caricature I have, or sometimes that the media portrays as sort of power hungry or in it for themselves kind of folks. I, in general, found people who, especially at the staff level, who were there because they wanted to see some change in the world. That doesn't mean that I agreed with the change they were trying to make in the world, but it was eye-opening in the sense that it made me realize that so many of the people that we are trying to convince of different ideas are at root coming from a similar sort of like they're approaching the world in a similar kind of way, in that they think that there's some kind of change in the world that needs to happen. So that's an important kind of thing to keep in mind as you think about ways to change minds, change hearts. So that's one thing. Second, I also thought that I would be involved in a lot of change and success and victories. But the fact is, if you are committed to civic engagement and advocacy, the vast majority of the time, you are going to lose. You are not going to succeed. You are going to, in fact, find at times what you think is the right thing is sometimes the wrong thing. So you need to find a way to kind of sustain yourself in the work, because it can become really burdensome and tiring if you don't have some kind of foundation to kind of go off of. So I want to end by sharing a few words from the Christian mystic and author Thomas Merton. He wrote this incredible letter. If you have a chance to read it, it's called A Letter to a Young Activist. Now, he wrote this in the 1960s at the height of the Vietnam War. And he wrote this in response to a letter he received from, you know, a young person who was fighting the draft, registering people to vote, doing all kinds of things to sort of fight the Vietnam War. And Merton says this, and I think it's really, really important. And I think it's something for all of us to kind of keep in mind as we continue this work. So Merton says, do not depend on the hope of results. When you're doing the sort of work you have taken on, you may have to face the fact that your work will be apparently worthless and even achieve no result at all, if not perhaps results opposite to what you expect. As you get used to this idea, you start more and more to concentrate on the results, not on the results, but on the value, the rightness, the truth of the work itself. And there too, a great deal has to be gone through as gradually you struggle less and less for an idea and more for specific people. The range tends to narrow, but it gets much more real. In the end, it's the reality of personal relationships that save everything. So, you know, to sustain ourselves in this work, to keep going, I really encourage you to think about those relationships that are going to sustain you, that give you life, that challenge you, that help you grow, because those are the things that are going to make you stay for this great work. So, yeah, thank you. I'm just grateful to be here, and you know, I'm really proud of the work that you all have done, and I'm excited to learn more. So, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. We are so glad you came to share your perspective from all your experience with us. Hi, I'm Allie. I'm the other co-president of Go at LC with Aria. And now that we've heard from Matt, again, thank you so much. We are going to hear from our IFTJ track teams led by Abigail Lowe and Mary Tully. So here we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Mary and I'm one of the leaders.
And I'm Abigail and I'm the other co-leader.
And Go Vote with IFTJ would like to formally welcome you to our symposium that's been sponsored by Cecil at Fordham. So the Ignatian Family Teach-In for Justice, also known as IFTJ, was held virtually from October 24th to October 26th, 2020 by the Ignatian Solidarity Network. The teach-in occurs annually and is open for all to attend in order to learn, pray, and reflect on social justice and solidarity. For all of us on the IFTJ team, this was our first time attending IFTJ, and we got to do it as a Go Vote team. We were able to attend breakout sessions on different topics during the weekend, but we also formed group sessions amongst the Fordham participants and participants from Cristo Rey High School. This allowed us to begin our relationship and conversations with the greater Fordham community and Cristo Rey on topics of advocacy. The pictures on this slide are, the first one is of our Zoom meeting that weekend. You can see some of our participants there and Carol Gibney. And the second picture is some of the students at Rose Hill were able to go in person and meet at Bepler Commons to kind of listen to the sessions together, and it was held by campus ministry. So what have we been up to this semester aside from IFTJ? Well, as a team, we've taken part in the Common Grounds conversation called Voting as an Act of Hope, led by Father Ben. We also led a Common Grounds convo with Cristo Rey students where I, as well as Nor Carr from the other track, were on the student panel. We created and recorded the video commemorating the Jesuit martyrs at the UCA, which you can find on our Instagram page and I believe on the Cecil blog. We participated in phone banking with Supermajority along with the other track. We created and recorded the Georgia runoff module, which you can also find on our Instagram page and the blog. And we created blog posts for the new Cecil blog, so you should all check that out. Now it's time to go into the participants of IFTJ track and who we are.
Hello again. My name is Abigail Lowe. I am the other co-leader of this group, and I am a sophomore. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a theater performance and humanitarian studies major. So something that I've really been, struggling with, as have the rest of us, is, as Matt was saying, the nature of connection in this Zoom reality, and how to continue meaningful advocacy when it feels like the whole world is just doesn't exist sometimes. And I think something that Go Vote has really taught me, first and foremost, and especially going to the IFTJ conference and hearing from all these people who are still doing so much work and do so much good work over this whole year, is really how passion and connection can reach past the screen and past Zoom and past all of this. And something that I am really, which is why I chose my quote, which is from Olga Segura from the second general session. What does it mean to be in community with each other when all we have is Zoom? And I think the answer to that is just a safe space to share our passion and to share what we have to bring to the room. So something that I've really learned from this and want to take back to Fordham is how to move forward in this virtual setting, even as we acknowledge how important personal connection is and how important in-person advocacy is, learning how to communicate that and move forward with our passions, even in this Zoom age.
Hi, my name is Karin Schroeder. I am a freshman, undecided major, and my pronouns are she, her. My biggest kind of takeaway from the Go Vote and IFTJ experience was the importance of listening to and understanding all perspectives when you're making a decision or working towards a solution for a social justice issue. This kind of idea first came to me in a breakout session at IFTJ about divesting Catholic institutions from fossil fuel. And one of the speakers noted how it is important to have the fossil fuel organizations themselves to be at the table when you're making decisions. And at first it seemed kind of contradictory to me because they were a part of what was supposed to be the problem. But when you think about it, in any social issue, you want to find the solution that has the most equitable outcome for all. And you can only do that when everyone is at the table. And this is an idea that can be applied so far past climate change into any issue that both on the Fordham campus and beyond.
Hi, my name is Nate Medina. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a junior, finance major and philosophy minor. And the quote that I wanted to put on my slide was, I just gotta move everybody's faces a little bit. I'm not focusing on the person older than me who doesn't have an open ear or refuses to be inclusive, but rather I focus on those younger than me and educating the younger generation so they can be better. And that was actually from a session about engaging in activism as a college student and really focusing on self-care for those engaging in activism. And that kind of, relates a lot to the main takeaway I had from IFTJ and engaging with Go Vote this past semester is this idea of planting seeds. And through things I've done, any activism I've engaged in, I did have these lofty hopes of making change right then and there. And I've taken a lot of losses from it, and it gets very tiring. You could almost break your spirit sometimes. So what really what is there to keep that motivation going? And it's this idea that you're not really doing it for now in the present and for yourself, but you're doing it for those reaping the benefits later on in life, past your lifetime, younger generations, generation after generation going down the line. It's for them. So that's what keeps me motivated, and I think that should be what keeps everybody else motivated.
Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Johnson. I'm currently a junior and my pronouns are she, her, and my majors are political science and sociology. A story that really stuck with me from IFTJ was the story of Alfred Dwayne Brown, a man who was wrongfully convicted for a crime he did not commit, even though there was evidence that would demonstrate that he was innocent, being withheld. One of the speakers during this breakout session was Chrisanne Murphy, and this is the quote that I chose that she stated during the session. This quote speaks about ending the death penalty, which I think is something that should be done considering all of the wrongful convictions that happen so often. And I think that this, along with the racial bias in the system, is something that we should continue fighting against and spreading awareness about, because not a lot of people realize how often an innocent person is executed or forced to complete a long sentence for something they did not do. So that's why I chose the quote from her.
Hi everyone, my name is Mara Wazitz. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm currently a sophomore studying computer science and global business. And what I enjoyed most about Go Vote and really IFTJ was sort of a sense of empowerment and also gaining a better and specifically more empathetic understanding of tons of different issues, especially those that I feel that I could never really have an impact on because, I'm not a policymaker. And from this, I feel like I have a better sense of direction and how I can use my voice to make a difference because I feel that educating ourselves can really be the biggest first step that you can take. And one of the most memorable breakout sessions at IFTJ concerned immigrant asylum and detention. And so for several years, asylum seekers and migrants have suffered the consequences of policies and conditions in their home and destination countries that have basically stripped them of their human dignity, and the effects of which have worsened in the months of the pandemic. And with this really, why this really resonated with me is because as the pandemic continues, we must continue to educate ourselves about the impacts of the pandemic on vulnerable groups, especially migrants and refugees, and really advocate for their protection.
Hi, I'm Emma Montroy, she, her pronouns. I'm a sophomore and I'm still undecided about my major. But one of the quotes that stuck out to me the most during IFTJ was just in the first general session. And it was, so rather than go back to normal, we need to move forward together toward a new normal. We need to make justice, equity, and love our new normal. So this quote is referring to pre-COVID times, as this is like the previous normal being discussed. And I know personally, I find myself pretty frequently wishing that the world would just go back to the way it was, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same way. But through Go Vote, I've learned that that's really not an option. Going back would mean experiencing all this upheaval just to return to our world where injustice, discrimination, and hate are so often tolerated. I plan to use the knowledge that I gained from Go Vote and IFTJ to educate others and continue to teach myself on how and why we need to fight for a better future. One day, COVID-19 will be a thing of the past, and it's crucial that when that time comes, we will have created a new resilient normal of love, equity, and justice.
Hi everyone, I'm Bella and I go by she, her pronouns. I'm a junior and I'm double majoring in humanitarian studies and theology and minoring in peace and justice studies and Latin American and Latino studies. So the quote that I chose is, "Are you a chaplain to the empire or a prophet to the resistance?" This was said during the first speaker. And so the reason I picked this is because the Ignatian teaching was about prophetic resilience. And so it's basically saying to resist the norms that people say are okay just because nobody's bothered to change them before. And we have to break down the barriers that the world has set so that everyone can flourish. And we can do this best by knowing that we're loved by God. And then if we are loved by God, acting accordingly to that. And so to me, this means loving radically and living as Jesus did. And one of the other quotes is like saying yes to healing and to justice. And so ensuring that if we're going to be prophets to the resistance, we're prophets for change. And I think that's part of what I can bring back to Fordham. Is just really loving people deeply and truly acknowledging like people's dignity and looking for more ways to get involved with service and more ways to get involved with the community, and just knowing to never be complacent with where I am, either in my faith life or my advocacy.
Hi everyone, I'm Mary Tully and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a junior studying biology and political science. This quote is from the breakout session titled, How Do We Build Up a Broken World? And it says, weigh your vote with a heavy heart of the suffering of many. This describes my Go Vote experience because one of my main takeaways from this experience is that it is a privilege to be able to vote and to be able to have these conversations. It is a privilege to talk about inequalities and not have to experience them. Given that I have this privilege, I need to use it to uplift the voices that go unheard, and that is something I hope to continue doing at Fordham and with Global Outreach.
So what's next for us? In the spring, we will be continuing these conversations around civic awareness because obviously, even though the election is over, civic awareness does not stop. So we plan on creating and presenting more modules on elections that happen every year, as well as on Fordham and COVID-19, especially as students move back to the city. And we also hope to partner with Cristo Rey students who we have worked with before during IFTJ to help deliver these modules. We will also be the applications for the spring projects for global outreach are January 4th, 2021. One of our participants, Jamie Johnson, is a junior leader. And we look forward to seeing her thrive in this new position and seeing all the great things that she and the rest of the Go projects will accomplish next semester. And last but certainly not least, we just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone. We wanted to thank Vanessa Rotondo, who has helped guide us through every step of this project, Carol Gibney for introducing us to IFTJ and really taking us through that, CCL for all the opportunities they've helped us become involved in, and of course, I and Mary would like to thank our team who have showed up to every meeting, ready to contribute and always putting their best foot in. And we would like to thank them so much for making this a great experience.
Thank you so much to the IFTJ Go Vote team. Great presentation. So now we'll be moving into the commissioning portion of the event. So I will be introducing Father Mick McCarthy, who will be leading the commissioning. Father McCarthy is the Vice President for Mission Integration and Planning at Fordham University. He oversees campus ministry, the Center for Religion and Culture, and the Center for Community Engaged Learning. Father McCarthy, we welcome you to commission our teams.
Thanks so much, Michelle. I feel really honored to be able to do this. And just before doing the commissioning, which is a text, I just want to say how grateful I am for what you've been doing in global outreach in really different circumstances. And as I was listening to you, I felt such pride, and I felt that you were sources of real hope for me in a time, we got to, I mean, these are difficult times. So like we got to recognize when there is a moment of goodness and grace. And so I just really want to thank you. I appreciate what Matt said about, these principles of advocacy, of credibility or being qualified is so important. It's so important now more than ever. And to be relational and to be grounded in something that is deeper and that can sustain us through the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of our experience. I also want to take the opportunity just to thank Vanessa, who is just a wonderful leader of global outreach. So kind of like much love to her. So I'm gonna read this commissioning, and then I will turn it back to the Go leaders. So at the start of the fall semester, CCEL realized we were given an opportunity to offer a non-traditional global outreach project in light of the reality of the upcoming US presidential election. The charge was broad: raise civic awareness across campus and on social media about the election. Participants phone banked, led the Fordham delegation, attending the Ignatian Family Teach-In for Justice, and engaged in deep conversations about civic efficacy during an election cycle like no other. The focus was and remains democracy, not partisan politics, not polarization. And what arose from this experience was a tangible understanding of the connection between Jesuit education and civic engagement. Father Pedro Arrupe, who was one of the leaders of the Jesuits in the 70s and 80s, called on Jesuit education worldwide to use imagination to be open to the signs of the times. In response to the coronavirus, our world has had to employ innovation to respond to the rapidly changing times in which we find ourselves. Through Go Vote, you all have engaged actively in keeping up with ballot counting, evaluating good information while you questioned all the sources, and have remained steadfast for truth in our democracy. In short, you have responded to the signs of the times. From this project, you have led a campaign on social media to ask your questions. What is good media? What is the Electoral College? What is going on in ballot counting? You have offered spaces for the Fordham community to ask these questions and have committed to finding the truthful answer to inform your educated opinions. You have emerged as leaders around democratic awareness on campus, committed to continue using your platform to raise awareness about the Georgia runoff. Your teams collaborated to create a video that sought to share the facts about the Georgia runoff. You sought to educate, not sway. Additionally, working with our Jesuit brothers and sisters from Cristo Rey Harlem, you will lead modules on Elections 101 and evaluating good information to further respond to the signs of the times. We're grateful for your work thus far and are eager to journey with you on your next steps. As we mark your participation in Go Vote, we'd like to commission you as agents of change in our community. When a brand new ship is ready to set sail, it is commissioned. The commissioning event is arranged by the ship's builders and shareholders and serves as a public declaration that the vessel is seaworthy and ready for voyage. The commissioning then is the literal launching point of the ship's active service. So with that, we commission you and we bless you as we move into finals, and we may your health be sustained, the health of your family be sustained, all that you love, and may everything that you do in these next weeks ahead be blessed, and may you return to us again really good and healthy for the next semester. Amen. So I'd like to turn it now back to the global leaders.
Thank you so much for that beautiful commission ceremony. We as the leaders just want to end tonight by discussing how participating in Go Vote has enhanced our Jesuit education. So personally, I feel like this experience has been absolutely amazing and has definitely brought me closer to the Jesuit ideals of discernment and action. And from our group discussions and constant reflections, it allowed us to embrace the discernment process and work through difficult experiences and emotions that have occurred over the last few months. And personally, I don't think discernment is enough, and there's always more that can be done. I really am proud of both teams for putting this into action, putting everything we feel and experience on a daily basis into making social change. And I really think that the different initiatives of each team really create visible action that we hope to continue in the future.
Throughout IFTJ and the work we've done in Go Vote, we've truly been exposed to the Jesuit value of being men and women for others. In IFTJ, one of our main takeaways was using our voice to advocate for those whose voices often go unheard. We have a position of privilege, and with that privilege comes the ability to make sure everyone has a seat at the table and that everyone's circumstance is accounted for. To do that, we must create intentional spaces that uplift the voices that are unheard, and we hope to continue creating those spaces at Fordham. Thank you.
Another key aspect of Jesuit education, especially for me, that is important to me, is reflection, both on our society as a whole and as individuals. Obviously, this year has brought unprecedented change and has really brought to the surface various social evils of the time that have perhaps gone unnoticed by those who have the privilege not to notice them. And so Go Vote has really provided me a safe space to work through my own thoughts in the world and turn those emotions really into actions. And we would like to thank all of you for taking the time out of your own days to share in this, our reflection with us. So yeah.
Yeah, and we'd like to leave you all with a quote from earlier in the night by the late and great John Lewis. Do not get lost in a sea of despair. Be hopeful, be optimistic. Our struggle is not the struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It is a struggle of a lifetime. Never, ever be afraid to make some noise and get in some good trouble, necessary trouble. And finally, I'd like to hand it off to Vanessa for some final remarks.
I would like to thank you all for being here with us tonight. Thank you to Matt for speaking. Thank you to Father Mick for commissioning and blessing our teams. An incredibly large shout out to both of our teams. You all have done incredible work. This has just kind of blown me out of the water. I'd like to take a quick second here to highlight the 4 leaders and really, highlighting the 4 of them. When we first started this was kind of an idea on paper, and, I pitched it to them and I was kind of like, it's really all we have. And they really took it and ran with it and just really owned it. And you saw the work that they did. It's incredible. So really thanking Mary, Abigail, Sarah, and Noor, and everybody who participated on their teams, and really, marking the end of this semester and looking into next semester, hopefully finding ways to continue these conversations. Thank you to everybody from the Fordham community for joining us tonight. And yeah, good work, everyone. This was really well done. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you everyone for coming.
Just want to say thank you, Vanessa. That was great. I'm so happy to be part of that.
Thanks so much, Matt. It was really great to have you in that space too. Good luck with finals. I hope everything wraps up well for you.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks.
See you later.
Take care.